Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Am I good to proceed or are you still on break,
Sorry,
Morgan?
Jen, your what matter isn't up until later on in the meeting.
Oh,
We're
okay.
doing two
So,
separate ones.
okay,
You're here nice and bright and early. We're just coming out of close. We're just waiting for the go ahead that we're back into open session recording.
okay, I am going to go on mute then.
All right, Madam Warden, we are good to resume here.
Okay, thank you. So we're back out in open session at this point in time, and I can report out from closed session that County Council moved into closed session pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and discussed only the said item that was noted. So with that, we are now going to go back to our number 7 items of agenda. We have 3 different items for discussion. We've got 7A, 7B, and 7C. We're going to begin with item 7A, and it's recommended that report PDR CW 90325 regarding an overview of county official plan amendment application 4242000 OPA 25, known as Thornbury Acres, on lands legally described as part of lot 27, concession 8 in the geographic township of Collingwood, now in the town of Blue Mountains, be received for information. I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McQueen, seconded by Councillor Mackey. And it's now on the floor for discussion to receive. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up here. So Madam Clerk, I think we're ready. I'll call that vote. Please identify with your hand up in the air or your virtual hand.
Sorry, Madam Warden, if we could just verify with Scott, if he would continue with the open portion of this one for the vote.
I'm sorry, Director Taylor, I didn't give you an opportunity to address the report. We're just receiving, but nonetheless, let me give you the floor so that you can highlight anything that you would like in the report. Thank you.
Madam Warden, through you, I'm at your disposal here. I do have a brief presentation prepared. I'm happy to walk council through it, but if council's read the report and is ready to advance the business, then I'll take direction from council accordingly.
Okay, well, Director Taylor, you have prepared that information. So if you would like to just very briefly go through it, then we'll see if there's any further discussion that might need some more details from you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief on this. So what we have before us is a brand new official plan amendment, which we've called official plan amendment number 25. And this would look at adding an exception to a site-specific exception to the special agricultural designation to permit agricultural uses to be used there in accordance with a proposed residential farm cooperative on the abutting rural lands, which is the rest of the lands. And so the subject lands for Thornbury Acres are 61 hectares in size, of which approximately 9.8 hectares are the special agricultural lands. And I have a map coming up here in just a second, which shows that. Council may be familiar with this property because the Thornbury Acres currently has 3 applications: a planning condominium, a town official plan amendment, and a zoning bylaw amendment, which are before the Ontario Land Tribunal based on appeals of non-decisions by the developers. And so there is a hearing scheduled for later in the year, but we haven't had a hearing on that one just yet. The residential farm cooperative as a whole, including the residential components, is proposed to be serviced via wells and septic systems for each of the residential units. And the condominium roads proposed through this development would gain access off of both Grey Road 2 and Grey Road 40. And so these are the subject lands. What you have to the east is the Georgian Bay Club Golf Course. They are southeast of the town of Thornbury, and they're located roughly at the intersection of Grey Road 2 and Grey Road 40. These are the current county official plan designations for the property. The white that you see on the map there is rural, and this hatching is the special agriculture. And as I mentioned, the special agricultural represents approximately 9.8 hectares of the total 61 hectares of the property. I should also note that the Grace Harbor Conservation Authority has confirmed that this hazard land mapping in the darker green doesn't actually need to be there anymore. So these lands can all be considered rural in that regard. So there's no new municipal applications associated with official plan amendment number 25, and official plan amendment number 25 would work in concert with the 3 applications that are currently before the Ontario Land Tribunal. As such, the county will now begin to process OPA 25, and that will include both a public meeting and a public and agency circulation in that regard. Following that public and agency review process, we'd come back to committee of the whole in this regard with a staff recommendation and detailed planning analysis as part of that report. So as you read out a few minutes ago, Madam Warden, the motion at this time is to receive the report. That's all I have, but certainly be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's been moved and seconded to receive, so it's now on the floor for any discussion. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any questions for you, Director Taylor. So in that case, then I will call the vote. All those in favor? And I see that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll continue on with planning. We have item 7B, which is it's recommended that report PDR CW 0225 be received and that staff be directed to prepare an update to the beaver and coyote/wolf bylaws for the council's consideration with input and consultation from the agricultural sector, trappers, municipalities, provincial ministries, and the public. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKay, seconded by Councillor Gregg. Thank you. It's now on the floor for discussion, and I do understand that Director Taylor, you're available to introduce anything on this, as well as Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. I'll turn it over to our Trails and Forestry Coordinator, Sarah Johnson, who's done a lot of the legwork on this report and would be happy to present it and answer any questions for you.
Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Johnson.
Thanks. I'm just gonna share my screen here. I don't know what I've done here to get out of. Here we go. Sorry. Well, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Warden. I just want to have a brief discussion on the beaver and coyote bylaws, just a little update. As council will recall, on October 10th, there was some correspondence that came forward from a local trapper, Mr. Gary Stocking, and committee directed staff to review both the beaver and coyote bylaws, as well as what our neighboring counties and municipalities might also be providing with regards to these sorts of programs. So since then, we have done some research. We've had a follow-up discussion with Mr. Stocking. We've also had a discussion with the county's Agricultural Advisory Committee. We have done that further research in determining what other municipal approaches are, who has a bylaw and who does not. And then we've also taken a look at the financial considerations and compensation that has occurred over the last 10 years with regards to both of these programs. For the benefit of everyone around the table, I did want to have a brief discussion just how the programs themselves work. So they both both have a bylaw that corresponds with them. The beaver process is a little less labor intensive. Basically, the problem of a nuisance beaver is identified by a landowner. That landowner can then hire a trapper. The trapper will come in and trap the problem beavers. They will fill out a form with the landowner information, with the trapper information, and that form is presented along with proof of the trapping. So the beaver tails in the case of the beaver program, they're brought to the lower tier municipal office, and usually it's an operations staff member will verify that, sign off on it, and then it's sent to us for verification and approval for payment. Us being the county. The coyote program is also similar. It's actually a coyote wolf program, but we have very few wolves in the area, so we generally refer to it as the wolf or as the coyote program. There's a little bit more steps that need to be done, and there needs to be, in the case to qualify, there needs to be a confirmed kill. So a livestock owner will have an issue where one of their livestock or more than one of their livestock has been killed. They need to call a livestock evaluator, and they come in and verify that kill. And again, there's a similar process to the beaver process, in which after that has been confirmed, a hunter or trapper can be hired, and they will deal with the problem. And then those, in the case of coyotes, it's the set of ears that are brought in to the municipal office, signed off, and then sent to the county for review and approval. So a little bit more steps involved with that one, in so much as that there has to be a confirmed livestock kill, and it has to have the livestock evaluator sign off on it. But that's the brief overview of those programs. To go a little bit more into depth on both of the programs, the beaver bylaw itself was introduced in the early 80s, and it was introduced to help protect the lands and infrastructure from damages due to flooding caused obviously by beaver damming. The current compensation for each beaver is $25. Currently, the requirement within the bylaw is that the licensed trapper must be a resident of Grey County in order to qualify to get compensated. And then that research that I referred to earlier, we reached out to 12 or 11 different municipalities and counties, and then the 12th one would be Grey County. And out of all of those that we reached out to, Grey and Bruce were the only ones that currently had a nuisance beaver bylaw in place. A little bit further in depth with the coyote bylaw, again, introduced in the early 90s, and it was to help protect livestock. The current compensation is $50 per coyote or wolf, where there obviously, as I mentioned, has been a loss or damage to livestock, and the livestock evaluator has confirmed that. There are other programs in place, I believe, through the province that will deal with the loss of the livestock, but the county's program in particular only deals with the coyotes or wolves that are claimed as a result of the loss. Again, the licensed trapper must be a resident of Grey County to qualify. And then out of the 12 municipalities and counties, only 4 of those have coyote programs in place. Bruce County and Huron counties has a compensation rate of $100 per coyote, and then Dufferin County and Grey County both had the $50. So kind of shifting focus just to look at what has been done over the last 10 years. As you can see, the budgeted amount has been reduced over the years as the claims went down. But what we're starting to see in the last couple of years is that those claims are starting to go up again. And as such, the budget for 2025 increased both beaver and coyote, I believe, to $15,000. So this is the beavers, and then this is the coyotes from 2013 to 2024. And I will caveat, this was only to the end of November. So there has been more claims that have come in. I believe that we are over the $10,000 mark for 2024 for beavers. So other considerations that we have taken into account as part of our research is, as mentioned, we did a brief presentation and had a conversation with the Agricultural Advisory Committee. Those committee members did indicate that they saw value in both of these programs for the farming community. And then we had additional conversations with Mr. Stocking, the author of the original correspondence, and he shared some information on how trappers were compensated from clients. So there is a discrepancy through certain public versus private, because the programs exist through the counties or municipalities for compensation. Some of those rely on that compensation to be the payment for the trapper. But Grey County in particular does not do this. Grey County will pay the set fee by the trapper. This is both with the roads department as well as the trails and forestry department as well. We've had to use services of trappers in I think 2023 for a trail problem, and that was the case. And I confirmed that also with the roads department. That's what they do as well. So as I mentioned, the 2025 budget contains an increase of $5,000 for each of the programs. So each program went from $10,000 to $15,000, and this is to account for the rising claims that we're seeing each year. But it currently does not increase the compensation paid per beaver or coyote to the trapper. So next steps, and this is where we're looking for direction from committee and council. There are a number of options that I have listed here. One is, the first option would be to continue one or both of the bylaws, and any such trapping that occurs would be paid for by the applicable landowners. Option one could include the need for further advocacy to the province on the matter. The second option is leave one or both of the current bylaws as is, with no changes in the compensation rate and no increase to the annual budget for such claims, although noting that 2025 is 15 instead of the 10. The third option would be leave one or both of the current bylaws as is, with no changes in the compensation rate, but increase the annual budget for such claims. And then the fourth option would be review both bylaws for efficiency, updates, and compensation. So what staff are recommending at this time is that council consider moving forward with a mix of option 3 and 4, with the bylaw reviews would include further public, municipal, and trapper consultation. So our recommendation is obviously that the report is received and that staff be directed to prepare an update to these bylaws for council's consideration with input from those the agricultural sector, trappers, municipalities, provincial ministries, and the public. And that's all I had. So if anyone had any questions, I'm available.
Okay, thank you very much for those extra details in addition to the report. So with that, then we'll put it out for questions. We have a question from Councillor Eccles.
Thank you very much, Madam Warden, and through you to Sarah, Ms. Johnson. I think it's getting harder and harder to find, local trappers. But in our purchasing bylaws and whatnot, my understanding is we cannot municipally eliminate somebody on residence for their work. If we were going to put out a tender for something, we can't say you must live in this geographical area to be able to bid on it. Are we in that same point here in saying that no, the trappers must be Grey County residents? And my feeling is I don't get that. I would like to see that eliminated going forward.
Okay, thank you. So I do see that Director Taylor has raised his hand, so I'll go to him for a response.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you to Councillor Eccles. This requirement for the trappers to be a resident of Grey County is something we'd really like to revisit if council provides direction to review the bylaws. I can't speak for our purchasing staff. In this case, the compensation programs compensate private trappers once a member of the public or a municipality has hired them to trap on their lands. So it's not directly a procurement perspective from the county in this regard. We're just compensating those trappers once they've been hired. And there is a process for an exemption to that, whereby the county can consider exempting an out-of-county trapper in that regard. And Sarah's got a report coming up on that next. But that's one of those key reasons why we thought if council decides to continue on with these programs, we need to revisit that, because the average age and availability of the trappers, the age is going up and the availability seems to be going down. So, beggars can't be choosers here, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more questions for discussion? No, not seeing any further. Oh, yes, Councillor Dobreen.
Thank you, through you, Warden, and just feeding off of the availability of trappers. Preference could be given to local Grey County trapping residents, but not exclude others from the process if we were going to an RFP. But could you clarify that this is just to allow for them to be compensated for the actual proof of they're not getting paid by the landowner that's hired them and being paid by the municipality or the county. They're just being compensated for, I would say, the beavers or the coyotes that they've proven to have dispatched.
So,
Ms. Johnson, go ahead.
yeah, so through the program itself, the county compensates for the beavers and coyotes, depending on what it is through that verification process. But that doesn't stop the trapper for charging for their service. And so that would mean, yes, they could be compensated by both the landowner and through the program.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further hands up. It has been moved and seconded. So, oh, Councillor Gray, go ahead.
Thank you. Just quickly, just wanted to note I'm definitely in favor of staff reviewing in 2025 the items A, B, C, D, and certainly the compensation has to be looked at as well. There's various different factors. We've had a few years where there's no snow, so you can't track as well if you're hunting. There's certain properties that are probably less desirable because hunters don't want to have dogs in close proximity to county roads or highways where they might run the risk of losing a real, cherished asset to both their recreational and for financial means as well. So I think the compensation is certainly something that needs to be evaluated after so many years. And it's always good to be reevaluating and looking at new efficiencies as 10, 15, 20 years go by in terms of the process anyway. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Warden Matrosoff. I just want to, I completely agree with Councillor Greg. The issue continues both with beavers and coyote. Livestock kills continue to go up. We're hearing even small animal lovers are losing some of their little fur balls to coyotes. So the issue is there. Compensation hasn't changed for a lot of years, and certainly I think it needs to be reviewed. The question from Councillor Eccles in regards to residency, I think that needs to be looked at. So I'm glad staff have delved into this and look forward to future reports on how we can improve the program. But the issue does exist for the agricultural community for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands. Nope, no further hands. We've had it moved and seconded. We've heard from staff. We've had discussion. Therefore, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. So with that then, Ms. Johnson, did you want to proceed to the next item, 7C?
Sure. For this one, I did not prepare a presentation. This is obviously directly related to the bylaw, and given that council wants us to look into the residency clause, this gentleman in particular, he had previously been granted an exemption to the bylaw. And, oh, Tara, do you need to interrupt me?
I'm sorry, it's not.
Oh, you'd like a,
oh yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. So let's get a motion on the floor then. And if I could have, thank you. So I've got it moved by Councillor Bourdignon, seconded by Deputy Warden Milne. It's now on the floor for discussion. My apologies. Ms. Johnson, please continue.
I apologize as well. I've been around long enough. I should have known that one. Anyway, Mr. Durant had previously been granted permission a number of years ago, and he has been trapping for years and years. As you can see from the report, he has been consistent, and he is one, I believe, that is used quite readily over in the town of the Blue Mountains area and Grey Highlands, especially with regards to our roads. So what we're looking for just is basically that council would grant that residency exemption, and that those previous claims that we have not yet awarded or have not yet reimbursed for 2024 would also be given permission to be granted as well.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, is that an old hand? Or, yeah, okay, thank you. So any discussion on this item? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands for that. So therefore I will call the vote then. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Johnson and Director Taylor. That concludes the items that we had scheduled for discussion. We now need to just conclude with some other closed session meetings. So item 8, it's that that pursuant to the committee, the whole does now go into a closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss number 1, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees regarding a staff member. And number 3, position, plan, procedure, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality regarding a staff matter. So may I ask for a mover and a seconder to go into closed? Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Mackey, seconded by Councillor McKay. Any discussion? All right, then all those in favor of going into closed? Thank you. That motion is carried. So we'll need a moment